Queensland researcher Ronald Pegg asserts that he has found Atlantis. Let's take a journey together as we subject his claim to the academic scientific method and examine the hidden clues that were slowly revealed. The creation and God stories from the Middle East all seem to have a similar narrative regarding the described characteristics of their gods, and some cultures had an associated oracle present. Putting these on a timeline, two related reported objects, which are named, also show up in other Egyptian stories. Having the same name, these two scrolls of Moses are also reported throughout history as two wheels, two books, with one of them being reported as just a book, or simply depicted or described by shape and colour and named. Regarding this Liona compass, this compass was temporal. While these were associated with an oracle, instead from a bright light, these people were shown physical objects by a reported messenger. The Egyptian papyrus shows the two objects, both of which, and the Aten sun disk looked like a computer data disk. On the Papyrus of Ani, the first object is called the ladder disk. But English was not used. In Latin, it was known as a scala. For the second object, two other god stories say that the cover of the disc is green. Did the ancient Egyptians use a scala disc and a green disc on a computer? Checking the same papyrus, the two objects are depicted here, with the first three columns providing the proof. Specifically, the mouse and cable is drawn, is held by hand like a snake. Its head is this basket with a tail. It has two moving buttons and looks like a scarab beetle, which had an associated rolling ball. Comprehensive investigations drew these conclusions and produced a report and a preprint paper. The second disc, that sits in the protruding ledge on a disc-shaped saddle in a horizontal slit in the front of the base box, is described as, to the east is located a foreign desert area. Adding this to the timeline consolidates new information. The oracle was like a computer, with the two associated discs being the scala and the green one. In the many various ancient accounts, the objects, the oracle, and the messenger were reported as being physically present back in the past and actively interacting with the persons who wrote their chronicles. In certain cases, the object is described with words confirming that the disc have their data written within the layers of plastic as dots and dashes, which is read from the backside by a laser beam. An 1829 picture shows witnesses holding a plastic CD case before plastic was invented. Nostradamus redrew his wheel called Destiny of Nations. It has 8 sectors, 3 with boats on water and 1 with a city. He says that the wheel, by itself, rests on the saddle in the air. Related with the same 2 seer stones seen by Smith, but reported earlier, were vessels that included 16 small stones with windows that were easily broken into pieces. They were made by being melted and casted into a mould, and were shiny and distinct, flat, level, and smooth as glass. Following on from this story, it is reported that after he read the brass plates relating to religion, he states that these things also pertain to temporal things. Temporal means pertaining to time of a secular world. So by all these people stating that the messenger was physically with them, means that the messenger himself had travelled through time. Egyptian glyphs describe the computer parts and 2 discs. The first was called the scala disc and later described as round, brass-coloured with spindles, with the other being green, and having a foreign desert area located to the east. Associated with them were 16 shiny, distinct small stones, flat, level and smooth as glass, made by being melted and cast into a mould with broken windows. Nostradamus describes putting a wheel on the drive tray, drew a picture of the Destiny of Nations wheel with 8 sectors, having 3 with boats on water and 1 with a city. The Queen of France called the glass monitor a magic mirror, with Smith pictured holding a plastic CD case with the black base removed. Did these earlier people have their own computers? No, there is no historical evidence for it, and because the temporal messenger himself is reported by many notable people as physically being present at many distinct times in different countries throughout our history. From where did the time-travelling messenger attain this particular computer and data disks? With the understanding that the messenger has travelled to specific points in time, using the gathered stated characteristics of the computer and data disks, search our technological history to find a match. The first electronic digital computer was built around 1940 in England, so our search starts after that. From a selection of computer mice, it needs to have a tail, 2 buttons, look like this, and has a rolling ball. Of these 4 types of computers, it needs to have a horizontal base box. These desktop computers came with a 2-button mouse and cable, but no CD drive. But both of these could be upgraded with this 1993 package, which added a double-speed CD-ROM drive, stereo speakers, and a compact disc that sits in a container. It was called the New Grolier Multimedia Encyclopedia and looks like this. One of its videos presents a war in a foreign desert area to the east of Egypt. Upgraded, these computers looked like this and required 16 floppy disks to set up. Each of the 16 had a shiny distinct metal sleeve. The case was flat and level and smooth as glass, and were made by melted plastic being forced into a mould. The operating system was Windows, which had broken windows as its logo. Searching for the first disc, using another word for nations, found this disc, made by the Scala Company. It has 8 main sections. 3 of them have boats on the water, and 1 with a complete city. When the case is opened, we see a round, brass-coloured disc with spindles. From all this gathered new information, we can draw a conclusion. A time traveller visited the 1990s and collected an upgraded 386 or 486 desktop computer running Windows, plus the 1993 Grolier Encyclopedia and the 1995 Ancient Civilizations of the Mediterranean, and on several back trips visited these specifically historically known people. Adding the new knowledge to the timeline shows that Egyptian stories involve the 2 discs, and that a computer was present in Egypt, a plastic case in America, 1 disc in France, and the one in Palestine that was reported as specifically temporal, twice. It would be easy to assume that the remaining objects are the same 2 discs based upon the similar names, but each account needs to be investigated separately. This was done by South Australian researcher Eddie Pengelly. For each of these individual research topics, respective comprehensive reports validated Pegg's claims and confirmed that the 2 objects were in fact the same two CD-ROMs that were seen, reported, depicted, or described back in the past at these particular times. Other ancient accounts were also found to be influenced by these two CD-ROMs, along with other stories in the Bible. This brings us to the Atlantis claim. Going to the timeline, in 360 BCE, Plato wrote about Atlantis in his two dialogues, citing an earlier Egyptian story. He states that 9,000 years have elapsed since the time of which I am speaking. So adding 9,000 years back onto 360 gives 9,360 BCE. But an ancient 10% code is fully explained as take 10 of 100, 100 of 1,000, 1,000 of 10,000. So adjusting the 9,000 to 10% and adding to the start date derives 1260 as the actual date of the Atlantis story. Adding this to our timeline, where all the other Egyptian stories are from the discs, visually exposes the source of the Atlantis story. This, of course, was investigated with a report validating Pegg's findings. Why did a time traveller take a computer and CD-ROMs back to the past many times? All these religious stories were inadvertently spawned trying to correct a problem caused by the first backtrip without destroying our current timeline. While investigating the consequences of finding time travel encounters in the Bible, one specific clue was found in Revelation. Using a word code found by Pegg, pointed to Mark's stories. Investigated, they too are from this CD-ROM. Researching Nostradamus and decoding his words found that he corroborates that religious stories were spawned due to encounters with a time traveller's computer and CD-ROMs, and Nostradamus describes Ronald Pegg as the future person to find a second code in the Bible. The Pegg Project starts with Pegg's original works, a summary book, and ends with an autobiography. The second researcher confirms proof of time travel in ancient texts, first with his Ancient Mysteries Solved reports, where they each reveal where some contents and pictures are described from the two CD-ROMs, where this CD-ROM's contents are described in the Bible stories, where this CD-ROM's historical events are described in Bible stories, the religious consequences of finding time travel encounters in the Bible, CD-ROM contents and future historical events in Nostradamus, feature books regarding 18 encounters, 35 with the computer, where Nostradamus describes the Pegg Project findings, and preprint academic papers. Atlantis found, and over 30 other ancient mysteries solved, with Nostradamus confirming the Pegg Project findings.